Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jer, and as you can tell from the title of the video, today I really want to talk about why I decided to change my number after having the same number for 18 years. I got this number when I was in 5th grade, like in 2004, 2005, and I've had the same number since. So many people have had access to that number, and I was like, you know what, like, I'm just ready for a fresh start. I'm ready to get a new number. I just get so many calls from people, or like there are so many people that have that number that I don't even communicate with anymore, or people that I don't want to communicate with that want to communicate with me. Like, when I think about it, any guy that I've ever dated, talked to, gave my number to, have all had that same number, and some of them were starting to randomly reach out again, even somebody from middle school, and I was like, okay, we're done. Like, no, I need to change my number. Any friends that I've ever had, like whether I talk to those people or not, like they've all had the same number. Any job I've ever had, co-workers that I've given my number to, like so many people had that number. And when I got my real estate license, that's the number that I use. So I would get so many spam texts and calls about real estate stuff. It was just too much. It was too much. So I decided that I wanted to change my number. Now, it did take me a couple of years to get to this point, because I was like, man, like I've had this number for so long. I've had this number since I was 10 years old, and I'm turning 29 this year. So, I mean, like, I had the same number since 5th grade, and there were so many things that were connected to that number. So I was really hesitant about changing my number, and I thought about it a couple years ago, and I just got to the point this year where I was like, you know what, like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna change my number, and I like it so far. Today is Saturday, April 29th. I changed my number Monday, and so far I've only given my number to a few people, and that in itself, listen, I have enjoyed this week of just bliss and peace, and nobody is calling me, texting me, other than the people that I communicate with on a regular basis. But I almost don't want to give my number out, but I know that I'm gonna eventually have to give my number out to some people. But I've only given my number, I think I gave my number out to like 8 people. Half of those were family members. Like, it's just been, and the funny thing is, I decided last week that I was going to change my number, and I'm telling you, like, I went through my contact list to see, because I was like, I'm going to also delete some old contacts. So I went through my contact list, and I was like, okay, I'm going to delete that one. I haven't talked to this person in 10 years. And I kid you not, like, it's like as soon as I made the decision to change my number, people that I had not talked to started reaching out to me even more. Like, people that I haven't heard from in months or over a year were reaching out to me, and I was like, this is so random. And on the day that I changed my number, somebody reached out to my brother and asked for my number, and I was like, this person hasn't even initiated any type of contact with me in over 10 years. Like, I was like, this is why I'm changing my number. Thankfully, people don't just like give out my number, but I'm like, oh my goodness, like, I was like, this is definitely a sign that I made the right choice. Another thing that I realized is that for so long I was just so tied to this number. Like, no, like, this is my number. This is the only number I've ever had. Ever since I had the block phone, the Nokia block phone with the clear numbers on it, like, that's how long I've had this number. So it's like, yeah, I'm just ready for a change. And I was just so tied to having that number, like, this is my number, that I didn't want to try something different. And so I'm glad that I stepped out of my comfort zone and that I decided to change my number, because it definitely feels like a fresh start. I'm also changing my license plate because I had a personalized tag. Now, one of my friends made a comment. She was like, I always know that that's your car when I see that personalized tag. And she said that I was being flashy, but I never did that to be flashy. when I got my car, when I got my license, well, I mean, I was in high school when I got my license, and when I got my first car, I didn't pay for anything for the first car. My mom just asked me, like, what do you want on your tag? And so that's what I had the same tag. Like, I had the same tag since I was in high school. It has my nickname on it. So, you know, I didn't really think of anything of it, but so many people are like, oh, like, I saw you driving in traffic, and I'm like, don't notice me. Like, I never did it to be flashy. I did it because that's what I liked. But also with changing my number, I definitely feel like I have more control. Like, I control who has my number now. You know how you go to the store and you're at the checkout counter, or you're at the checkout line, and the cashier is like, okay, can I get your number and your email address? And I'm like, no thank you. Like, I just say no thank you. And I know at Ulta, they'll tell you, I think it's Ulta and Kirkland's, but for sure at Ulta, they'll tell you like, oh, like, if you don't give us this number, you won't be able to return your items or something like that. And I'm like, okay. Like, I only go in there to get one thing, and it's something that I use on a regular basis, so I'm like, okay. But it's funny that people like try to force you to give your number. Even with my church, when I want to give tithes, they don't have like a login to where you can just put in your email address and give your tithes that way, but you have to give them your number. And I'm like, I don't want to give my number out anymore. Like, now I just feel super protective of my phone number, and I'm just gonna have to mail in some checks, because I'm like, I do not want to give my number out. Like, why do I have to give my number? I don't know. I did think about, like, well, what if somebody really needs to get in contact with me, because I'm not on social media anymore. So I'm like, what if somebody really needs to get in contact with me? I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm pretty sure over this past week that I've changed my number, I'm pretty sure that people are wondering why their texts are green, why my text bubble turned green. But listen, I'm sure it's people that have called me and got the disconnected message or whatever it is. I'm pretty sure people are wondering why I'm not like texting them back, but it's gonna be okay. When I'm ready, I will give people my number. If you're thinking about changing your number, I would definitely say do it, because I just feel so disconnected from like my past and like people that were trying to get in contact with me that I didn't want to talk to. And so I definitely feel disconnected from them, and I just feel like free. Like, I just feel like a breath of fresh air. Like, it's so refreshing to just change your number and have a new start, and you know who has your number, and you know the people that you give your number to are not going to share it with anybody. And so I don't know, I'm glad that I made the decision, and eventually I will start giving out my number to like people that I actually communicate with in real life. But for right now, I'm just enjoying the peace and quiet of not having my phone blowing up all the time, because I literally would go days and sometimes weeks at a time with my phone on do not disturb, and I would have it on the setting where only my favorites could call me, and I did not allow repeated calls, because it was just overwhelming to have so many people contacting me all the time. Before I started at the company that I'm at now, all of my business calls would go to my personal phone, but now I have a work phone where anything work related, real estate related, it goes to the other phone. And so I really like that, and that showed me that I never want to give out my personal number for business purposes again. So if I do go back to resale and decide to do what I was doing before in real estate, then I would definitely get a second phone line, because I do not want to have so many people reaching out to me. That was another thing about real estate, because when you're a real estate agent and you use your personal phone, like, people are always reaching out to you. They reach out to you at any time of the day or night. Like, they do not care. People will call you at 2 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and they expect you to, like, people will get mad if you're not answering them in enough time. People expect you to respond immediately, and I'm just not with it. Like, I'm not gonna ignore you for days at a time, but I'm gonna get to it when I get to it, when I'm free, when I'm available, when I have the capacity to deal with your drama. That's when I will respond to it, if I want to respond. Hey y'all, so Today is May 7th, and it's been about 2 weeks now since I changed my number. Tomorrow will make 2 weeks since I changed my number, and I have to say that's the best decision that I've made in a while. It's the second best decision I've made this year. The best decision I made this year was combing out my locks, but that's another story for another day. But like, I just feel so happy. For a while I did not share my number with quite a few people. I think I only gave my number to like 8 people starting out. Maybe like the first week and a half, only like 8 to 10 people had my number. And then like a couple days ago, I started giving out my number to the rest of like my friends and everything. But I have to say it's been pretty peaceful, and I only, at this point, only 33 people, maybe 34 people have my number now. And they may still sound like a lot, but when I went through my contacts and started deleting contacts, I had almost 800 contacts. And so that's just the contacts that I had. So just imagine the people whose number that I didn't have saved. Like, so many people have access to my number, my old number, and I'm happy that they don't anymore. So yeah, like, even like people just reaching out to me wanting stuff or just being negative. Now I will say there were a couple people that I started not to give my number to at all, because even though like we're friends, we're cool, whenever I would go to their name and type like, hey, this is Jared, this is my new number, like, I don't know, I just felt hesitant. Like, okay, maybe I don't need to give this person my number. Like, maybe I need to wait a couple more weeks to give this person my number. Because another thing that I'm like dealing with right now is just making sure that I have the right people on my team and eliminating negativity. So, you know, if somebody's being shady or negative, maybe it's time for me to evaluate that person. And since I was feeling a little hesitant about sending my number to specific people, maybe it's time for me to reevaluate those friendships. And you know, it's okay to take breaks from people. Another thing that was really interesting to me was the week after I decided to change my number, my pastor was talking about how he also had been thinking about changing his number for the past 2 years, like me. He said he had that number for almost 20 years, like me, because I had my number for 18 years. And he was talking about people that have access to you and like being able to go to the next level. And I'm like, man, that's so true. So when I heard that, that was just confirmation for me. And it had been like a week at that point that I had changed my number. So yeah, that's where I am on it. I'm glad I changed my number, and now I see why people change their number so much, because it's such a freeing feeling. Like, my phone is not going off with unnecessary noise. And that's another thing, is just eliminating noise and choosing to be happy. So that's my little update. If you're thinking about changing your number, I say do it. Go for it. So that's pretty much why I decided to change my number, and eventually I do want to make another video about why I decided to delete all of my social media accounts. So if you would like to know more about that, then please leave a comment in the comment section below. Be sure to like this video and show your girl some love, and I hope you have a great Saturday or whatever day it is that you're watching this, and I'll see y'all next time.